You know, it doesn't matter if you're 14 or if you're 64. Insane in the Brain is undeniable. When we're on stage and that song comes on, the beat starts and then you hear that squeal, right? And then B-Real says, Insane in the Membrane, and I don't gotta do nothing. Just look at the crowd, yell that shit out. I mean, just thinking about it right now, I got goosebumps.
Insane in the Brain serves as, I think, our biggest song. Like the biggest impact we had was with that one. And we didn't expect that because it was initially a diss song.
It just sounded fun. The beat was very catchy and infectious, and it just had a bounce to it. The people that heard it all over the world, you know, they felt that too, because it was just like, sounded like a fun song. I think that was the key, because had people thought of it as a diss song, maybe it would have been interpreted a little different.
Who you trying to get crazy with this, eh? Don't you know I'm local? It was just to make a statement to like whoever was coming at us, you know, be careful what you ask for, you know, because we are those guys, and we're letting everybody know if you're coming at us, you're dealing with something else. To the one on the flamboyant tip, I just tossed that ham in the frying pan. Like spam, get done when I come and slam. Damn, I feel like the son of Sam. I took what Chubb Rock was calling himself at the time. He was calling himself the flamboyant one. So I picked that and tossed it into that first line. It's important to give background on what inspired that whole shit. Was he did a song called Yabba Dabba Doo, and there was a part in the middle of the song somewhere where he emulates our part where we say, time for some action, just a fraction of friction, right? Off of Kill a Man. And he says, time for some lyrics, check the something, you hear it. And that was telling me, oh, he's just trying to say I can't get down, right? Like I don't have lyrics or whatever. That's the way I took the line. It may not have been that. Don't make me wreck shit hectic. Next is a chair, got me going like General Electric. The lights are blinking. I'm thinking it's all over if I go out drinking. That right there is something that I try to do on every song. Not that particular flow, but the adjustment. I call it the shift, if you will. Like the style might start off this way, but then when I get halfway in, I'm flipping it to something else. Sort of like a ramp up. You know, that inspired every other song I wrote after that, like to make sure that I put a shift in it somewhere to elevate the verse from one point to another. Oh, making my mind slow. That's why I don't fuck with the big 4-0. Bro, I got to maintain. A nigga like me is going insane. I had a few experiences when we drank and we were on tour and we tried to go on stage and it would just fuck me all up in terms of remembering the songs. Smoke weed all day, I don't forget any fucking verses, any of the words, but a couple of drinks, I'm forgetting the first word and I can't do it. So I sort of just reference that, you know, let folks know, hey, I am a stoner. Insane in the membrane.
Insane in the brain.
Insane in the membrane.
Insane in the brain.
Insane in the membrane.
Crazy insane, got no brain.
Insane in the membrane.
Insane in the brain.
We would listen to, you know, jams in the car, and we would always, you know, rap along to certain songs. And I remember there was a Public Enemy song that was on, and B-Real would rap Chuck D's parts, and I would do the Flavor Flav parts. But my favorite Flav always sounded like, lower, right?
You know, it's basically Public Enemy in reverse. We were big fans of them, and when I developed the high-pitched style that I rock with, you know, Send Dog, to complement that style, came up with that Psycho Beta thing to layer on top of it.
Do my dirt undercover, now it's time for the blabber to watch that belly get fat, a fat boy on a diet. Don't try it, I'll jack your ass like a Luda in a riot. B-Real, he showed up one of the days of the studio and he had that whole song written out, all 3 verses. And he gave me the option to either I could write my own verse or do the verse that he wrote, which I still think he was going for Chubb Rock's head on that second verse. You know, B-Real, like he says, he's the captain of the pirate ship, and if you ever diss us, he's gonna come with every weapon he has. And I was one of those weapons. So my shit's fat like a sumo, slamming that ass, leaving your face in the grass. I don't take a dulo lightly. Punk's just jealous because he can't outfight me. It says dulo, and dulo is basically from the Blood neighborhood, from we hung out on 89th Street with the Family Gang, and that was one of the words that was popularly used around that area. And that's when you do somebody low, or you done me low, you did a dulo, and that's one of like the most scandalous things you could do to another human being. Kick that style, wicked, wow, happy face nigga never see me smile. Back in the days, it was very, look at me, my, my chains, my gold chains, my brand new shoes, and, around the album cover doing all this and that. And that's happy rap to me, man, you know what I mean? So, when we came out, especially our first album, you can't see anybody's face. You don't see anybody smiling or cheesing up on the camera. And we thought all that was cheeseball shit. We wanted to take those chances and risk and see what happened if we went out there on that little island by ourselves. And, the shit paid off. With that mainframe, I maintain a nigga like me is going insane. Well, at first that line, a nigga like me is going insane, at the end of that verse, it didn't mean anything to me because I hadn't gone crazy yet. And so it was like more of like a depression and anxiety, like really heavy type of thing, you know what I mean? It didn't mean nothing when we made the song, put the record out, and then as we started touring, and then I started feeling, the anxiety coming on, and I didn't know what that was. Every time I did that song, I was like, man, was this song like forecasting me and what was gonna happen to me? Like, cause I felt weird, you know what I mean? And then through, years of, touring and going to the same places over and over and over again, I conquered that. Now I look back on it like just as like a young vato trying to learn his way through the world and having to be in places where, they don't sell tacos and burritos and shit like that.
Just like Louis Armstrong played the trumpet, I'll hit my bong and break you off something. We're being advocates and activists and running the flag up for legalization. And what a lot of people don't know is Louis Armstrong also smoked cannabis. A lot of the jazz artists in his time and before him, like Cab Calloway and all those guys, they were talking about cannabis in jazz. So they were one of the ones to carry the torch too. So I thought it would be cool to reference Louis Armstrong in the line. Soon, I got to get my props. Cops come and try to snatch my crops. These pigs want to blow my house down. Head underground to the next town. They get mad when they come to raid my pad, and I'm out in the 9-deuce cad. Law enforcement, we've always had issues with, as kids living in places that we come up from. When you got songs like Fuck the Police and Pigs and Cop Killer and all that stuff, there's a deep resentment and tension that one might have. And as Cypress Hill, we know there may be gunning for us, but we're going to be sliding out no matter what and standing tall in the end. Yes, I'm the pirate pilot of this ship if I dip with the ultraviolet dream. We looked at ourselves like, in hip hop, we are the pirates. We don't give a fuck. We will come and snatch your shit up and take over the spot. That was our mentality, you know what I mean? Hide from the red light beam. Now do you believe in the unseen? Look, but don't make your eyes strain. A homie like me is going insane. Being doubted and being the underdog is what sort of drove us, quote unquote, insane. Some people loved us. Some people thought that, they're not gonna last long. And, that was always fuel to us. We were always out to prove them wrong. That gave us all the fuel to keep pushing and get better at the craft and evolve as a group and as men. I mean, I got a DM from Chub Rock like 2 months ago. He goes, bro, I didn't even know. I'm like, hey man, we were young and emotional then. Water under the bridge.